there have always been things that I've wanted, material things, nice surroundings to live in, and objets, and stuff. There are things that I've always wanted, but what I've actually really wanted the most is stuff that's mine. I've often felt like I've been pressing myself into other molds and trying to fit in with what other people say, what other people do, what other people profess to believe. And of course it's very, very limiting for my own soul. And as part of my blog post this morning, and that I tweeted out as a standalone line, I was quite pleased with this actually, that I think it's really important to learn to remember what you dreamt of before you tried to fit in, because that's the real you. And when you're trying to please other people, it's always going to be at other people's expense. And I'll tell you what, I've been practicing a new method of deep work, and I'll tell you what, it's been very powerful. It's given me an awful lot of clarity about various things, and it's going to take a while because it's emotionally taxing. I'm not gonna lie, it's raking up a lot of stuff, and physically putting it down on pen and paper, it's a very, very intense and emotional experience, because what it's actually doing is establishing, and this is something that I've wanted to do for a long time as well, it's establishing where I end and other people begin. And it's really helping to clarify who it is that I am and my position, my place in all the various things that have happened in my life. And I've put myself a lot of the time second, third and fourth and fifth, sixth, 10th, to what other people have been demanding or suggesting. My automatic stock response to most things has been to go along with what other people have wanted, to basically be a peacemaker for not just family, but for friends and colleagues. And there's a lot of work to do on this, but it's enormously freeing, I have to say. It's leaving, it's a phrase I use quite a lot in my videos, it's leaving far more room at the inn to actually turn up for myself. And what I realise, the actual subject of what I wrote about today. And by the way, I talk about the posts that I write. There are links to all of my social media in the descriptions of these videos, and link to my website as well. But you'll also find, if you prefer to read them here on YouTube, you can actually go to the community, the posts section, and every single post that I do goes in there with a nice picture to satisfy my artistic leanings. And what I've established is how defensive I've been. Rather than protecting myself and defining boundaries, I've been awfully defensive of other people, making excuses for them. But you see, the defensiveness has run out of usefulness, because the defensiveness that we create are coping mechanisms for whatever scenarios we found ourselves in, the environment in which we grew up, they were all necessary to actually withstand what we were all growing up with. You know, there's no perfect parenting method. A lot of people, in fact I think most people, they're making it up as they go along, and we all have our unique set of circumstances. There's no rule book for this stuff, which is why I've always said that I prefer principles over rules. And the advantage of when you start to sort yourself out and you've come through hardships and struggles, you know, and trials and tribulations, well, the beautiful thing is actually you do develop a fantastic sense of resilience that I talk about a lot, and I actually think it's one of the most valuable and essential traits if you want to lead a fulfilling, happy and successful life. I think it's an absolute superpower, but it's one that is definitely hard fought for. And when you think about all the many billions of people that there are on the planet, what I actually find the most incredible thing of all is we have a tendency to kind of obviously pick out all of the black facts, you know, the dark, depressing statistics of people who have died and have succumbed to addiction and terrible destruction. Well, they're the minority. They're the minority. The majority of people actually do pull through. Maybe they don't live their most fulfilled lives, but they do pull through, and you know, they get married and they have children and they have jobs and they go on holidays, and you know, the washing machine breaks down, they get it fixed. they actually come through it all, which is an incredible thing. It's a really, really incredible thing. That's the power of the human spirit, and it is within all of us, but obviously you have to cultivate it. And I have to say that with all of the relentless thought loops that I've been running in my brain and obsessing over, well, writing them all down on paper, but physically buy yourself a nice pad, a nice pen, and several nice pens, several nice pads. You're going to need a lot of paper. The act of writing it all down is incredibly liberating, and it helps to start to make sense. And there's no right or wrong way of doing it. All I am literally doing is writing down all of the words, thoughts and feelings, writing everything down that I've experienced, and just seeing it on paper in front of you, completely irrefutable, undeniable, just seeing it all there in front of me. Honestly, you think, wow, this is what I'm actually spending a huge amount of time doing, wasting time on this stuff. Get it down on paper. Believe me, there is powerful and positive wisdom in all of this stuff, and I love it. And the beautiful thing is, even if you start with just scrap paper, I think the physical act, rather than typing it out, I do think the physical act of writing it down anchors it more in your body, you know, because it's actually stemming from the body that you think and feel in. I think that does help. But just writing it down and seeing it in front of you and just being totally, brutally, unfiltered, completely honest, it makes you realize that there's a huge amount of shit up here that we propagandize ourselves with. Once you actually are brave enough and willing enough just to be that radically honest, I think it helps to actually start freeing you just from doing that. And the first book that I ever wrote, first self-help book actually, I wrote a couple of fiction books first, but lots of short, lots of stories at school. The first self-help book I wrote was Be You to Free You. And basically, after writing that, 11 years later, I'm actually starting to really do it. But I'm doing it, and that's the point. No defense, no restriction, doing what I need to do. And honestly, if you're willing and up for it, I recommend that you do the same thing. Because as we know, the great life is lived by you, by me. It's lived by ourselves. Nobody else will do the work for you. Nobody else can take responsibility for you. You can't take responsibility for anybody else. Sort yourself out first. And I guarantee you that if you're willing to do that, it will leave space for all of the great things that you're really capable of, that you really, really want to do. It starts and it ends with you.